Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the 10 Golden Rules of Internet Marketing for Law Firms podcast. We've got a great guest today, Mark Khazanovich from Core Accounting Solutions. And Mark, just before we get to you, I want to talk a little bit about the exciting news coming up for TGR Live, our Growth Strategies for Law Firms event. If you're a regular listener, you've heard that we booked the Opal Grand Hotel. It's right on the beach in Delray Beach, Florida. Delray, if you're not familiar, is just adjacent to Boca Raton, where our office is located. And it's really fantastic location. And that's in between Palm Beach and Fort Lauderdale. So if you're booking flights, if you can fly into West Palm Beach, it's a little easier. Fort Lauderdale is great. Miami's the third choice. And the dates are March 10th and 11th, 2025. We're calling it TGR Live 2025. And some of the new news, we've booked some of the great speakers, or we've announced some of the speakers who are going to be joining us. Mike Morse, he of the $200 million personal injury law firm, award-winning TV commercials, awesome ground game, will be joining us as a keynote speaker. Really looking forward to Mike. And Mike also runs on EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System. We have a panel of EOS experts that Mike's going to participate in as well. Greg Crabtree, if you're on the audio, you won't see this, but if you're on the video, he wrote this great book, Simple Numbers, Straight Talk. Fantastic business book. Ben Glass from Great Legal Marketing is going to talk about some of his strategies for how to live a great life as an attorney. And Andy Sievers, the founder of Case Status, which I understand just won the #1 new technology at the Clio conference. And he's going to talk about the startup mission, as well as this tremendous tool for law firms called Case Status. Think of it like an app for your clients where they can find out exactly what's going on with your case, and an AI application for your staff where it drafts the responses to your client's questions. And it tremendously increases your client satisfaction, reduces client unhappiness, bar complaints, and increases your Google reviews. So some other fun things. DJ Nez is booked for our cocktail party. We've got some fantastic interactive networking and interactive activities. And really a lot of people we talked to after the conference, we did a survey, said it was the most sort of communal conference, like where they really got to know everybody. So some of the interactive things we do in the networking and really bringing home the learning. So it'll be a lot of fun. It'll be awesome. Obviously, March 10th and 11th in South Florida. It's a great place to be. So for those of you north of, let's say the Carolinas, you definitely want to start at booking your tickets. There's early advance prices if you're listening to this in real time in end of 2024. And if you're listening in 2025, don't miss it. Love to see you in beautiful Delray Beach, Florida. So without further ado, let me reintroduce Mark, and welcome to the 10 Golden Rules of Internet Marketing podcast.
Thanks so much, Jay. Happy to be here. Sounds like a great program.
Yeah, I hope you can join. So tell us a little bit about your background, and then tell us about Core Accounting Solutions.
Yeah. So again, my name is Mark. I live in Phoenix, Arizona. I've lived here nearly my entire life. I was born in Toronto, so I really have a profound appreciation for the beautiful weather we have here. And it gets hot, but we don't have to shovel sunshine, which is really nice. And yeah, I lived here my whole life. I went to Arizona State University. I joined Core in 2014. So this is going on almost 10 years that I've been doing Core. And so that's been pretty awesome. Over the years, our expertise has really narrowed in, and our niche has narrowed in on law firms. Today in 2020, at the end of 2024, we work exclusively with small tech-forward cloud-based law firms. We work with customers across the country. We did consulting for a firm once in the Cayman Islands. And other than that, that's what we do.
And one of the things that you mentioned that is surprising is you guys don't do taxes. So talk about the role you play and what y'all do for clients.
Yeah, that's great. So our focus with our customers is much more their day-to-day systems, processes, bookkeeping and management accounting, in addition to the general business accounting that we do for all of our customers and the insights that we work with them to get from their financials. Attorneys have this unique legally mandated accounting obligation relating to their trust accounts. And so that's a big concern for many of them. And that's something that we take over for our customers as well. Now, as you mentioned, we don't do year-end taxes, and this is very intentional. We really believe in having checks and balances throughout every step of our process, both internally with our customers, and having a different person doing your tax return provides a not only checks and balances, but a unique perspective because your tax professional is looking at your accounting and your numbers through a very different lens than we are.
Okay, cool. And what are some of the basics? Like, if you had 3 or 4 things that you'd recommend to firms, here we are at the end of a year, moving into planning for 2025. What are some of the things that, really good advice that, these small law firms should practice?
Sure. This is a very good question. I want to preface by saying the advice I'll share might not sound groundbreaking, but we found it's harder for firms to implement than to not implement. The first thing, and if there was one takeaway from this podcast, it's to have consistent, repeatable internal processes throughout your firm. This is just so important. We find that the weakest area for the account when it comes to the accounting is not having good processes internally. For example, we recommend that all of our customers have an internal firm culture of adding expenses and activities into their legal practice management software as soon as they incur them. If this is something that everyone in the firm does right away, not only can they reallocate that mental energy to something else, but they're a lot less likely to forget to add activities, and they're a lot more likely to collect for the work that they do and the expenses that they incur. So having really good processes is the first thing. The second thing is having the right tools in place. Uh, you know, in this day and age, everything is a subscription, everything costs a monthly amount, and we think that every business should be conscious of ROI for everything that they're doing and every dollar they're spending, not just when it comes to marketing, which I'm sure is something you talk a lot about with your clients, but they also need to make sure that they have tools in place that allow them to be efficient and effective. COVID was a really interesting shift for the legal industry because it just really accelerated their comfort level and adoption of technology sort of en masse in a way that I feel like if it weren't for COVID would have taken another decade. And so having a lot of firms have realized, you know what, it's worth spending a monthly amount to pay for a tool like Clio or Smokeball and be able to run my firm more efficiently and be able to spend more of my time doing what I need to do. Yeah, so I can go on. There's a lot of things attorneys can do, but really having good processes is super important. Having the right tools in place goes hand in hand with the processes, but that's really important. And then there's a lot of little accounting things that they should do, but those come after.
Yeah, well, since you mentioned Clio, you did mention a little technique about the hard importer tool in Clio. You want
Yes.
to delve into that one?
Yeah. Yeah, sure. So this is strictly my opinion. This is not like a dig at Clio, but Clio has this tool that works great for some firms. Basically, they call it import hard cost or hard cost importer. And the idea is that when the transactions show up in your QuickBooks, when you code those transactions to a specific account that you had mapped in Clio and you add their respective client, it will sync from QuickBooks into Clio, where you can then add that as an expense on the matter and add it to your bill and recoup those costs. We feel that this process is inefficient. Like best case scenario, it takes a couple between the expense being incurred, let's say by an attorney, it's at least a couple days till it downloads into QuickBooks. If you have someone going in there every single day, that's already at least 2 or 3 days that they don't see it. Then they have to know that not only it's a case related expense, but who the client is. And then on top of that, if that client has multiple matters, it isn't even assigned correctly in Clio. This goes back to what I was saying earlier, that instead of doing all this, what the firm should do, in our opinion, is just add the expense into Clio right away. And you can even do it from the app, right? So you can do it from the parking lot of the courthouse if you need to. But when you add it right away, you're much more likely to recoup and to record everything and capture everything accurately.
Now, a lot of our clients are personal injury attorneys, and thereby assume a big
Sure.
part of the listenership, or at least 50%. what accounting tips do you have for PI firms?
So for PI firms, especially for those who don't have a huge volume of cases, being conscious of cash flow is really, really important. A practical thing that really all law firms should do, but it's especially important for firms that work on a contingency basis, is to get approved for a line of credit before you need one. If your accounts are in order and you can demonstrate cash flow, you can often get low to no cost, no monthly cost lines of credit for really good rates, and you have those set if and when you do need it. You're not going to get as favorable of terms if the time comes you really do need it and you try to get it. The second thing is, and this goes hand in hand with the cash flow. Personally, it's important for business owners with irregular cash flow to manage their personal finances accordingly as well. Like while business might be going well today, it's not guaranteed. You don't have recurring business in the same way. And so having a good sense, perhaps saving more than some of your peers in less potentially volatile industries is really important. When it comes to practically, when you receive the settlement, guidance is really to wait a couple of weeks before dispersing the funds to your client and paying off the liens. It'll show in your bank portal if the transaction is cleared after a few days. However, it can be up to a couple of weeks later that there's a chargeback or the funds are retracted, and then you don't want to be in a position where your IOLTA account overdrafts, which this avoids. Part of this is the clients want their money right away, and you feel this pressure from them, which is why we feel it's best practice to set good expectations with them on the front end and let them know before they even start the case that when the funds come in, a couple of weeks later is when you'll get those funds and when you'll be dispersed.
And you're talking about the IOLTA accounts when we met, and you said that a lot of people don't realize those are it's like a state account and it accrues interest.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to?
Yeah. So yeah, it's really interesting. I'm sure all of your listeners know this, but I find it very fascinating because like the general public, if you were to Alexa, stop. My virtual assistant is reminding me of my
Yeah.
next appointment. Um, so when you a lot of people don't realize that when you pay an attorney a retainer, I think if you were to ask the general public, they would say that a retainer is the amount of money you need to pay an attorney to get them to take your case and get out of bed in the morning. Your listeners know that it's really an advanced deposit, which is what the bar calls it now, and which is a much more accurate name. But one of the traits of these IOLTA funds and these trust accounts, and some states are called IOLA, uh, rather than traditional business accounts, which are tied to the EIN of your firm, these IOLTA accounts are tied to the EIN of a state organization. In Arizona, that's the AZFLSE, which stands for Arizona Foundation for Legal Services and Education, or something along those lines. And the unique things about this are if there's an overdraft on your IOLTA account, the state gets notified. And so in Arizona, it's an immediate audit if there's ever an overdraft, which is why it's important to make sure you're on top of these funds. This is more of an issue for firms that don't have a lot of money in their trust accounts. And two, what's really cool about this is that the interest earned on these IOLTA accounts while it's sitting in the bank, instead of being paid to your firm, is paid to the state. And so in the Miranda rights, where it says if you can't afford an attorney, one will be provided for you, it's in large part paid for by the interest earned on these trust accounts, which is pretty cool use of the system.
I always like to ask folks like yourself and myself who work with law firms, what are some of the key points that you identify between the winners and the losers?
Wow.
I now have a chance to, look into these firms and see a lot of their numbers. Obviously we're
Yeah.
bringing in the marketing leads and seeing the value of the cases. You all are looking deep on the numbers. But I find that, firms that run well, there's a lot of markers and there's a lot of indicators. So what are some of the things that you find that for firms that work, and perhaps as guidance for young lawyers who are building up to be
Yeah.
firms that win?
Yeah. I want to challenge this idea of winners or losers. And I think that there's really two types of law firm owners. One are business owners who happen to be attorneys, and two are attorneys who happen to be business owners. Neither of these are better or worse than the other, but it is a different approach. I think that there's in the zeitgeist, we hear a lot about startups and private equity money and all these things, but there's something to be said for having a sustainable, well-run lifestyle business that provides a great living for you and your family and for the families of your team. And there are many attorneys who are these lawyers who happen to be business owners that can still benefit from having good processes in place. And really, it's the same for them. Even if they don't have growth aspirations, they need to make sure that they have a pulse on their finances. They need to make sure that they are on top of their compliance. They want to make sure that they're not spending more than they're making, right? And that they're getting good return on the marketing dollars they are spending. Now, there's this other category, which are business owners who happen to be attorneys. And for them, they care a lot more about metrics and KPIs and specific granular marketing spend. They tend to be spending a lot more on marketing, but the foundations are still the same. Are they able to pull a report that shows where their expenses are? Are they able to know, do they know how much money they actually made? I mean, you may not find it surprising, but so many business owners across all industries just don't know if they're making or losing money. They just don't know. And that's really important. I think that between the firms that are really doing well and the ones that aren't, I know these aren't concrete, sort of hard and fast concrete things, but the trends are that they have good processes in place, that the processes are consistent and repeatable, that their team knows what their roles are and that those roles are defined, that they know, each team member knows what their role is in the process. Because when they hire or someone leaves or they grow or they get an influx of clients, they're not ironing out the kinks when they're already so busy, but they're teed up and set up to do it. And so I think a lot about processes and operations. So that's the lens that I look at these things through. But in order for the numbers to be in order, the processes need to be good on the front end, which is why a lot of what we do with our customers is making sure that they know how to do what they need to do so that we can do what we need to do.
What are some of the, again, the clues of the processes and systems in order? We're big proponents of the EOS and entrepreneurial operating system, the book traction.
Yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
whole podcast and webinar on that topic if you're interested.
Yeah.
But what are some of the other indicators of, firms that have those type of systems, training, KPIs, processes?
Okay. So I think looking at the end in mind, if a business owner is able to have these following things, I think it's a good sign their processes are in place. A, do they have a lot of accounts receivable open, a lot of past due invoices? If the answer is yes, it's an indication that they probably need better accounts receivable and billing processes. I know Clio has really good dashboards that show utilization, realization, and then the collection rates. And that's something that is visible to all firms. Are those numbers higher or lower than where they want them to be? Are the trends continuing that they're utilizing and collecting more? Do they have their regular business accounting and three-way reconciliation done on a monthly basis? Is it accurate, right? The three-way reconciliation is legally mandated. Regular business reconciliation isn't, but it's still a good best practice to do it every month so you can identify issues and discrepancies and resolve those things. Also, you have peace of mind that your finances are in good shape. Do firms have enough, enough runway to cover several months of expenses? Especially, as I mentioned, for firms that are contingency. I mean, we've had clients who are settling one or two massive cases a year. In between the cases settling, they still need to make payroll for the other, 52 weeks of the year. So, or 50 weeks of the year. And so those are some indications. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say specifics because every business looks different. The numbers are a bit different for every business. The trust requirements, the degree to which they utilize their trust accounts is different. So I think that if a business owner is able to, if I ask them, hey, can you get me your profit and loss and balance sheet, and they're able to pull it for our meeting in 15 minutes, I know they're in good shape.
Yeah, that's a good one. How often should you look at your accounting and your books, and how often should folks meet with you?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Our goal is to have the accounts reconciled by the middle of the month so that you're looking at data that's relatively fresh. If firms are doing a lot of billing and have a lot of open invoices, that's something they should be looking at more. The general business reconciliation you should be doing every month. The three-way reconciliation you have to do every month. And in certain states like California, you literally are signing an affidavit that it's accurate and that you're attesting to it being correct. Some states don't require a physical three-way reconciliation report. We still feel it's best practice to do it so that you have verification that you did it correctly. But I believe that every state requires that the three-way reconciliations are done uh, accurately and on time. I think that if you are the kind of business owner, if you fall into the second category that I was saying earlier, a business owner happens to be a lawyer, I suspect that you're looking at your numbers much more closely and more frequently. You might be doing some sort of projections or budgeting or forecasting. You might be looking, like I said, at other KPIs that are less relevant to a firm of a couple effectively service providers who want to do a great job, make their money, and go home to their spouse and kids. And those firms, we still feel it's important to be reviewing your finances regularly. With them, they just don't want to meet in person as often because they know that they're doing fine. And we still get, they still get their reports. The other thing to keep in mind, not with us, but with their tax professional, is that they should really be meeting with them at least twice a year. We recommend finding a tax professional who recommends meeting every quarter. There are things you should be reviewing, checking that you're making your appropriate estimated tax payments, planning for the next year, reviewing that you're taking the correct payroll amounts. Those sort of things are important. And having a good relationship with your tax professional is very important as well.
I'm in a CEO group, and the group's monitored by the MBAs. And one of the questions we always ask is, are there any key pivots or changes you made in your career or business? And what are the lessons that you learned on those pivots that a young attorney or a young business person could learn from?
Wow, I love this question. And there's really two things that were pretty transformative in Core's evolution. One, in 2016, Core was recognized by Intuit nationally as what they called a firm of the future. And I guess, award or whatever that we got for this recognition was a 6-month intensive program with a guy named Ron Baker, who's like the godfather of what's now called value pricing. And throughout this program and really upon conclusion of this program, we went through and transitioned from a completely hourly model to a completely fixed price model, which was probably the greatest thing our business ever did. And it's interesting because it's taken a long time, but I'm now having a lot of these conversations, and a lot of conversations with attorneys about moving to a fixed price model. And really the hardest part about it is psychologically for yourself. And there are differences, a different sales process, a different language, a different value proposition, but I just like totally believe in fixed price. I think that it's very realistic for way more attorneys than are actually doing it to do it. That's a conversation we can come back to. And the AI stuff is really going to make a big impact on this fixed price transition. But my hypothesis is in the next 5 years, we're going to see a lot more firms moving to fixed price. The second really big thing that we did that was huge for our business was focusing in and niching down. We niched into law firms, but I think that the fact that we are able to be very clear about what we do, the fact that we're able to really become experts in our area, we at this point don't take a single discovery call from businesses that aren't law firms. And we found over the years that there are times we take a business that maybe is straightforward on paper, but every time they're not a lawyer, it's still some other thing we have to learn and some other thing we have to do. But niching down has really been huge for us and really transformed our business and the value we're able to provide to our customers.
Sure, you're familiar with the Simon Sinek TED Talk. What is your why?
Yeah.
What is your why? What gets you up in the morning, makes your heart skip a beat?
Yeah. I think the reason I really like what I do, and I'm really glad I don't do taxes, is because we work with our customers on their business, right? We're really working with them day to day. For some of our customers, there's this cliche, work on the business, not in the business. the work we do with our customers is sometimes like the extent of their on the business work, and it's really rewarding to be able to do that. uh the right customers for us, we're not explaining to them why they need to outsource their accounting. The people we work with are at a point where they already realize that, and so for me it's really rewarding to know that we're helping them with this thing that Jay, most attorneys got a liberal arts degree and went to law school. So while what we do isn't very sexy, there's definitely a market need. And it's really empowering to be able to do that. It's awesome to be able to talk to our customers, talk to their paralegals, several months after we start, and everyone's happier and they're glad that they did it.
Great. Well, I know you listened to a few of the shows, and hopefully you made it through to the end and you're prepared for the one-liners. We've been doing this for many, many years now. So what apps or techniques do you use for personal productivity?
Personal productivity. Calendly is like the best. I think now it's $12, the best $12 a month you could ever spend. We've been using it for a
Great,
long time.
great.
We're very tech forward. So we've been using this stuff for a long time. And I thought, since before COVID, so I thought Calendly was really going to replace the back and forth for scheduling like lunch meetings and coffees and stuff. The most commonly scheduled meeting are 15-minute phone and video calls. And at this point, our customers they just know that if they want time on our calendar to schedule via Calendly. And so we rarely get calls out of the blue. We're always prepared for our meetings. It's just the best. So I love Calendly.
Explain how it works, because if people
Oh
aren't
yeah, sure, sure. Well,
familiar.
it's basically a tool that imports my calendar and creates a site where people can pick the time that works best for them, based on my availability. And so it just makes it much more easier to coordinate. And then it does all the back end stuff of adding it to our calendars and sending invites, and you can have it send reminders, and there's a link where they can reschedule or cancel. And it's
Sets
just
up
been
a Zoom
huge. I love
meeting.
it. I love it.
Sets up a Zoom meeting, right?
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. The invite, like you said, can include a location or the Google Meet or Zoom or whatever, and that's been really awesome. I heavily utilize Siri reminders. I know it's not very sophisticated, but it's really underutilized. The Apple Reminders app. Not only can you do reminders based on day and time, but you can create reminders based on location. So I can make it remind me when I get to my parents' house to do XYZ, and as soon as I put it in my reminders app, I can reallocate that mental capacity for other stuff. Our
Great.
firm is built on ClickUp, which has also been huge. And because it's just such a big part of my general efficiency, I find myself putting personal tasks and reminders in there as well, just to stay organized.
We love ClickUp too. That's great. Do you have a
You have good
personal
taste.
wellness or fitness routine?
Yeah, so I used to think that I hated exercising. I'm not like the paragon of physical fitness, but I, I think growing up, this maybe outside the scope of this podcast, but growing up, I think like the conventional wisdom was that if you want to be in good shape and you want to lose weight, you have to do cardio. And there was times in my life, I was running 3, 4 times a week, miles each time, and I never once liked it. I always hated it. I never got the runner's high. Maybe if I did, I would have liked it more, but I always hated it. And I think now there's much more the conventional not wisdom is that it's really the strength training that helps you build muscle, and so I've just found that so much more accessible. A friend of mine a few years ago sold me his Total Gym, and to quote his sales pitch, if it's good enough for Chuck Norris and Christy Brinkley, it's good enough for you. And it's in my bedroom and I find myself
Yeah.
using it, which is more than before. So that's really big. And then I read a lot. I read a lot, both audiobooks and with my eyes. And uh, I should probably read more business books, but I really read for entertainment and it's my escape. And there's just so many amazing books out there. And I want my kids to see that we're reading. My wife and I are both voracious readers. So,
That's great. That's actually the next question. What are the best business books?
oh man, I have so many great fantasy and sci-fi and history books to recommend. Business books are harder. So trying to think of something that I read recently that really resonated with me. You know, I don't have a great answer because I find that I just read the ones that are like the most popular, not any really deep cuts. It doesn't make it to my list unless it's like very well known. So, a lot of the little ones that Atomic Habits was one that I liked and I think about a
Yeah.
lot. I play guitar, as you see, and I definitely notice that when I practice every day, even just for a little bit, I get better and better each day. And so with young kids, I want to demonstrate that for them. But that was one. I wish I had better recommendations. My reading is mostly for entertainment these days.
Well, if you can't see Mark's background, if you're on the audio only, there's at least 6 guitars in the background. So
Much to my wife's chagrin. Yeah.
tell us a little bit about your either guitar collection or your music background.
And music background. So I was in a ska band for many years when I was younger. I don't know if you're familiar with the genre. We were called Oedipus and the Mama's Boys, which was we thought was clever at the time, and that was really fun. At this point, my friends who I played music with have moved away. Do you play the instruments, Jay?
No, no. If I was in a musical band, I'd have to be the manager.
Okay, well, they definitely need that too. Uh, Being in a band, for those that haven't done it before, it's like being in a relationship with as many people as are in your band. It's often hard to be in a relationship with one person. Like this, it's even harder. And I basically today the majority of the music I do is at home. What's really awesome is that music technology has just come so far since I started when I was 14 years old, and it's so accessible. And for a couple $100, you can make better music on your computer at home than we could make for $3,500 on like a high-end digital recorder that we were getting in high school. So it's an awesome time to be a musician, and I have a lot of analog instruments out as well so that my kids can have things to play with and interact with. So
You asked if I was familiar with the genre. I think the only thing I would be able to tell you about ska is the English beat saying "the mirror in my bathroom." Was that a ska band?
English beat, yeah, is what you would call third wave, and that was like or second wave, first wave. I don't know. It's like older school, and then there was more like pop ska. Some
Yeah.
some big bands in my youth were Real Big Fish and the Aquabats, and some of these bands that were a bit more. If you ever saw that movie Basketball, did you ever see that movie?
No, no.
Okay, well, the Real Big Fish
But
had
I'm
a
sure,
cameo.
hey, by the way, if our listeners are, and especially if you're watching on YouTube, go in the comments and let us know, what you know about ska and if you ever saw
Yeah.
it play. Who's your NFL team?
I am not a big sports fan. I heard I went to a talk with the owner of, I think it was the Vikings, and he said it was right around my bar mitzvah. I realized that my chances of owning a sports team were better than playing on one. So I always stuck with music. I have my strengths and my weaknesses,
And
and sports were never my strength.
if there's any blogs, podcasts, or YouTubes that you subscribe to, which one catches your attention? Like when it comes in your feed, you immediately listen to it.
If you want very dry, interesting YouTube, one of my favorite channels is called Technology Connections. And the guy just has this very interesting style of delivery. And he makes these videos about like he'll make like a 35-minute video about an air conditioning thermostat and how it works. And I swear to you, you will find stuff interesting that you have never even like thought about before. So I don't know, I find it very cool. I come from a long line of engine nerds, so I don't know, maybe that's why I find it interesting. But
Great. And what's a great introduction for you? Like who would be a great fit for your firm, and who can we all introduce you to?
that's really nice of you to ask. Uh, for us, a really good introduction are law firm owners, solos, or firms with a few attorneys, where they fall into this category of really good service providers. They're in the cloud, they're trying to do things right, and they just want to outsource to an expert and not worry that their accounting isn't going to be in compliance. They want to know how their business is doing. And like I said, they want to do their job and go home to their families. They've been a great fit for us, and we really like them, and they get it and we get it. And so it's great. Yeah.
Great. And last easy question, where can people get in touch with you?
We're all over the internet. First and foremost at coreaccounting.com, and it's Kore. So it's core with a K, not C. So coreaccounting.com. We're on LinkedIn, all over our website. There's forms. They can email team@coreaccounting.com, and we're happy to connect. Yeah, we're more than happy to answer questions and do a complimentary discovery conversation.
Awesome. Well, thanks for your time today. And
Yeah.
I hope you do get a lot of introductions from this session.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jay. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the 10 Golden Rules of Internet Marketing for Law Firms podcast. Please send questions and comments to podcast@10goldenrules.com. That is podcast@TENgoldenrules.com.